I'm Danny. I'm going to be introducing Cristobal and the introduction and the gift economics presentation. I facilitate a study group called Liberalism Is Not Enough. We focus on, it's here at the church, first Sunday of every month, so, come hang out. You don't have to read the material. Not many people do, but we have very lively 2-hour discussions about the material in depth. So feel free to pop by. First Sunday of every month at noon in room 10. We focus on, obviously, economic justice in our study group. A lot of people think that economics is just numbers, ROIs, spreadsheets, but economics really is a broad system of social organization and social relationships. And whether we like it or not, we're all part of those relationships, and they all affect us in certain ways. So what we do in our study group is we look at these systems, right? We look at liberalism, and it's not a crass rejection of it, but we critically analyze the political and economic experiment we call liberalism. Again, not to engage in a crass holistic rejection, but to understand its excesses, shortcomings, its place in history, how it came to be, who it benefits and who it harms. And then I think, only then can we start to talk about, where we need to go as a society and how to get there, right? We have to understand the systems we operate within first in order to change them for the better. I don't think we can heal the ills of this world without fully understanding, what's ailing it first, right? So I want to introduce, after that, brief introduction that I fumbled through, Cristobal, creator and chief operator of People's Plumbing, a cooperative plumbing company that operates under the gift economics model. This is a really exciting concept for me. I know very little about gift economics, so I'm really pumped to have him here. I'm really looking forward to him explaining how this model operates, and I hope you all enjoy this as much as I know I will. And thank you very much for coming again.
All right, is this the right distance from the mic? I wanted to thank the church, the West Shore Unitarian Universalists. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Yeah. And I want to thank Valerie for inviting us into her home to help out and learning about what we do and introducing us to Danny, and for both of you for inviting us here today. A little bit more about me and my background. I co-founded Direct Action Everywhere, an animal liberation group, and grew it from about 5 people in a living room to 100 chapters in less than 2 years, with less than a $5,000 budget between those 2 years. So really, in terms of grassroots mobilizing for action is something I'm very interested in. I've been doing some kind of activism on and off since 1994. I'm a senior trainer in Kingian Nonviolence, which is the nonviolence of the civil rights movement, and co-founded People's Plumbing in 2023. So I am really hoping that you all are willing to sing. So if you're chewing, maybe put it down if you're willing to. I'm going to go through these 3 lines, and so I'm going to ask each table, we have 3 tables here, to sing a different line. So it's probably the first line, the second line, and the third line. And I'm going to walk away from the mic. You are safe.
We will protect you. You are safe. We will protect you. You are safe. To build a better world. We're here to build a better world. We're here to build a better world. We're here to build a better world.
A world
for everyone. Build a better world. We're here to build a better world.
And that includes you.
We're here to build a better world. We're here to build a better world. We're here to build a better world.
to build a better world. We're here to build a better world. We're here to build a better world.
All right, thank you.
That was fun.
All right, next slide.
Oh, do we vote?
No.
I want 2 bars, sorry.
All right. Why did I want to start by singing this song? So, discuss in small groups, 2 to 3 people, or yeah, do that for about a minute. All right. So, none of you are mind readers, but what did you come up with?
Well, it's a cooperative endeavor, and it's very human kind of expression, and it's also comforting.
So it's cooperative, and it's a human expression, and you said it was comforting. Yeah, those are all things I would aspire for. Anyone else? Any other ideas?
I just really enjoyed how, well, it's like a symbol of how people can bring a bunch of different things and it all contributes to something that's like greater than the sum of its parts. And I also really liked how it started off a little chaotic, but then we all locked into something and it was working.
Cool, thanks. Yeah. Anyone, so we all can bring different things and they can add together to make something better than the separate parts. Anyone else?
We kind of decided that it's like, I think the presentation's gonna be like an intellectual understanding of what we're doing, but the song like is more of a visceral understanding of what, so we're like absorbing this material both like intellectually and cognitively, but also like on a body visceral level. I think it's really important to have both.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I do think intellectual articulation is important, and also like what is living inside of our bodies. I'd rather it be inside your body than inside of your head, actually, if I had to choose. If we could do both, that's great. And that's what we're striving for, is to strive for both of those. Any other ideas?
I like the fact that it was a challenge. It was tough to do, and I guess kind of like what Margaret said, it started out a little rocky, but we were all able to live up to that challenge, and it ended up being a very nice tune.
Yeah. Thanks. Cool. So, I like to start things with songs for a few reasons. Just in general, one, I think there's not enough singing in the world. I've been to organizer meetings and strategy sessions and asked who thinks there should be more singing in movement spaces, and like everyone raises their hands. It's like, who's willing to lead a song, and no one raises their hand. So it's like, or 1 or 2, and so I just try to bring more singing in. And also, basically, everything you said was correct. So those are all really about what we're trying to do here today. Yeah. Okay, so who wants to read this for me?
I'll read it. What is the best thing humans can do for the natural world?
Yeah, what is the best thing humans can do for the natural world?
Stop messing with it.
Listen to
What was that?
I said stop messing with it.
Stop messing with it.
Listen to it.
Listen to it. Anyone else?
Perspective. Recognize that we are part of the natural world.
Recognize that we are part of the natural world. A lot of spaces that I've been in, people will answer this question with like disengage, be away from it, separate ourselves. Because a lot of times we don't see ourselves as part of the natural world. So, and we only see ourselves as destructive forces on it. Because when we go into nature, we destroy forests, we mine, we burn, we do all these destructive things. But we don't only do destructive things, and it doesn't have to be that way, and it wasn't always that way. So this idea that we are a part of nature is not very predominant in our society. Most people in our society view us and the natural world as different, as separate. Not just different because we can all be different, but see ourselves as the part of the same whole. So when we don't see ourselves as in it together, I want to say that that inherently leads to domination. And I'm very open to, if anyone has an example, that's counter to that, because I don't think there is one. What comes up when you read this word connected?
It's like bound to something or a part of something.
Bound to something or part of something? Awesome.
Bound is kind of negative.
Could be.
It's a warm word.
It's a warm word.
Interdependence.
Interdependence. Yeah. Yeah. Next slide. What about this word?
Makes me cringe a little bit.
Cringe.
Lonely.
Lonely. Yeah. So, in the way that humans view the world, what were the first two separations? And I'm going to ask you all to go and talk in your tables for a minute or two and think about, historically, if we go back, we used to think that, oh, we're all in this together, we're all part of the same thing. What do you think as a table, and it's okay if people at the table disagree too, what were the first two separations in the way we view the world? So let's take a minute. What do you have for the room?
The first thing that came to mind for me was the invention of money.
The invention of money?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Any?
My first instinct was Cartesian duality, like the separation, like the separation, like mind from body. But I don't know, you know.
Okay.
And I didn't want to say it, like, because I'm, well, like, I don't know, like, you know, kind of fucking nerdy. Sorry.
Any other ideas?
Let's not being involved in the production of our food and either making it or knowing someone made it or like somehow being involved in it.
Okay. I'm thinking way longer ago than that.
I started with like the separation between darkness and light.
Oh, okay.
Great Genesis of it.
Really back there, like
The
Genesis.
haves and the have-nots.
The haves and the have-nots. It's a very important separation today,
Yeah.
for sure.
But the first.
For me, I sparked the idea of individuation in developmental psychology. So you have the mother and the baby together, then there's a separation physically between the two, but the baby hasn't quite figured out individuation as a separate being for quite a while. So to me, it's like a transition.
Yeah, I was not aware of that, and that's really cool. So what a lot of anthropologists agree on is that there were two. There's disagreement about which happened first between these two, but the first is sort of either sex or gender, like the separation between men and women, and the other is between human and not human. And so the idea, so at first, humans were all like in a group. You didn't really care if someone was a man or a woman other than for perhaps mating purposes. But as far as like a cohesive tribe or society, it didn't really matter what your sex or gender was. So that, if you go back far enough, it's a long time ago. And the other is the separation of looking at trees and looking at squirrels and other animals and thinking of humans as distinctly different. If you go far enough back, humans did not see ourselves as distinctly different from the rest of the natural world. In the sense of course I'm not a squirrel. but seeing that squirrel as just a part of the world in the same way that I'm just a part of the world. So we can still respect differences. You know we can't breathe underwater and swim like a fish. We know we can't fly through the air like a bird. But we see that we're all just parts of the same whole without necessarily elevating ourselves over it. I do want to point out that there are still some indigenous cultures and some religious views that still hold that humans and all of life were all just part of this same whole. That in their minds, they're not really trying to, they're at least actively trying to not elevate one above the other. So while this is a very ancient and old way of looking at the world, there are people who never stop looking at it that way. And so as we bring these ideas forward, this is not something that like I created or any of us created. This is a thing that we learned about through travels and reading and other things.
Before we move on from this slide, I wasn't discussing with anybody, but I didn't hear anybody say it. I feel like there's something to be said about the biblical idea of the creation story hinging on mankind's knowledge of good and evil. Yeah. Because good and evil are kind of concepts that we made up, and then we made up the idea of whose job is it to identify what's good and evil, and whose job is it to do something about what's good and evil.
Yeah. Do you want to respond to that?
I have thoughts, but they're too long for this.
Okay. There are things that Damiana is just going to know so much more than me. All right, yeah, now let's go to the next slide. Thanks for sharing that. Has anyone heard of the idea of beloved community before?
Yeah.
All right, great. What are some thoughts or ideas about it? Like, what have you heard? And you don't have to spit out any specific definition. We are going to put one up there.
Radical welcome, radical acceptance.
Radical welcome, radical acceptance, yeah.
The idea that there are people who, like, that we all work together, help each other, and like, when we work with other people, instead of like having one big load to carry, you're sharing it, and it's a boat, and you carry things together in the boat, then you can on your back in the water. But, you know, like, if you're trying to move rocks from somewhere to somewhere, and you've got a load of rocks, and you have a boat, you can move it. If you're just carrying it, you can't. So the community is like,
so people come together and act like a boat for moving things around or doing things together that we couldn't accomplish all by ourselves.
and that goes for like supportive, emotional support. And
Yeah, not just our physical situation in the world, but also our emotional state. Like, are we getting the love and care that we need? Yeah, absolutely.
That saying right up on the wall up there.
You want to read that saying?
We need not think alike to love alike, by Unitarian's founder, Francis David.
Yeah, we need not think alike to love alike. I like that. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. So we define it in the Kingian nonviolence tradition. We define it as a world where relationships are such that everyone can reach their utmost potential and justice prevails over all the land.
I just want to add that this means being like lovingly held in your community, and that also means being held accountable to your community. Just wanted to mention that like sometimes it feels good, and sometimes you have to be like, wow, I really disappointed my community, and I have to think about that to be able to not only be beloved by my community, but give beloved community to other people.
I feel like you should have said that in the mic. Can you say it again?
Yeah. Do you want me to say it to the mic?
Yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to say that like beloved community is being unconditionally loved in your community, but that also means being held accountable by your community. Sometimes it will feel like, oh my gosh, I am so loved unconditionally by this community, and that even means being like, oh, I've disappointed my community, I've done harm in my community, and that means that I have to take accountability for that, and that is also beloved community.
Thank you. And at its root, beloved community includes everyone. And this is not just a spiritual thought. It is a spiritual thought, but it's not only a spiritual thought, it's actually rooted in an understanding of the physical world. That we all share this one planet with the climate crisis, us in Western modern culture have started to understand how when we do something in one country with the atmosphere, it affects every other country. So some of us have started to understand that when people in one part of the world are exploited and have their economic stability degraded, it can destabilize surrounding countries and sometimes countries and other continents. So when authoritarian ideologies are lifted up and supported in one place, it encourages those ideologies around the world. And the economic situations in one place affect how safe or dangerous it is in other parts of the world. Now, one sort of way I think about this sometimes is if your neighbor's house is on fire, you will get smoke in your yard. And just like a question, it's kind of a rhetorical question, but are you safer and more at peace if your neighbor has all the food and other physical and emotional needs met, versus if they are maybe concerned about where they're going to get their next meal, or if they're even going to have housing next month? Which is the safer situation for you, who's not that person? If some schools are denied resources for students to be that they would need to become a contributing member of society, how does that affect in the long term safety of people on the other side of town who maybe are getting all the resources they need? Because I have heard from people who said, well, why do I want to fund that other school? Why don't I just fund the school that my kid goes to? So, well, if you want your kid to grow up in a safer world, then really you want to fund all of the schools so that no one has to turn to crime in order to get their needs met. This is not just about schools, it's about everything in life. Unconditional love. I want to know what comes up for you when you hear unconditional love. We've already mentioned it earlier today in this room. What comes up for you? Yeah.
Your parents.
Your parents. Yeah, a lot of times people will say they unconditionally love their children. Yeah.
A little asterisk. Those
Should.
Yeah, was it a nurturing love or not, I think can be looked at individual relationship.
I'm one of those asterisk people with unconditional love and parents and family and things, but one of the things that helped me contextualize this for myself was a quote. I can't remember who said this, but it was, I can be in beloved community with somebody and that person can be in beloved community all the way over there, and we can still be in beloved community together. And that was a helpful contextualization for me in terms of beloved community is a really big thing. And it is not we have to be on top of each other to live in beloved community. And that idea of, I don't want to exploit them or have someone else exploit them, even if I have a complicated relationship with these people, helped give me a broader understanding of what this would look like.
Yeah. There are people I would love to never talk to again. And I want them to have all of their needs met. I want them to have a safe life. I want them to experience love and care, and I want them to have safety And I really don't want to talk to them again, ever.
Have those needs met by somebody else. I like
Yeah, they can have those needs met by someone else. And that can be true. Let's go to the next slide. And I would love for someone to read this for the group.
I'll read it. We define unconditional love as wanting everyone to have all their needs met. This is a love that may not have affection as between friends and family. That is more powerful than other forms of love. It is a love that recognizes that we are all connected to each other, whether we want to be or not. This love refuses to dispose of anyone. It says that everyone is valuable to the community just for being a person, regardless of what they have said or done, and regardless of their capacity to give to others. The Greeks called this love agape. It is part of all major religions and is both celebrated as a behavior and discouraged by our systems.
Yeah. I would say that any parent who says I have unconditional love for my child, they just named a condition. The condition is that it's their child. It's not unconditional. And I think about, oh, well, what if you found out later there was a switcheroo at birth? But then at least it's like, well, you raised them. There's still that condition. Anything else come up for anyone when reading this definition?
It honestly made me feel relieved in like that it's possible to exist in a community that is forgiving, and maybe there is a place for me like that in the world.
Yeah, there is a place for you. I would like to say that.
Thanks.
It's right here.
Yeah.
Danny. The word that stuck out for me when reading all that was compassion. Like definitionally, I think the root word of compassion means to live with suffering, I'm pretty sure. Like and like there's nothing we can do about that. Like there's an asterisk to this, right? There are qualifiers to this, but like we have to live with each other for better or for worse. We have to live with these conditions for better or for worse, right? Like you can't just toss people aside because it's not convenient for you. Like you can't toss people aside because they're struggling and you're inherently tied up in that struggle, being two human beings, you know, in the same community, the same large species. That's what I got from it.
I think sometimes the concept of unconditional love can be weaponized, or people can feel guilty when they don't feel like they unconditionally love someone who's harmed them. Like you can only be harmed by someone so often before you have to stay away from them, and that can be conflated with like taking your love away. But it can be self-preservation.
Yeah.
To add to that too, one of the things that came up in my head was like, which we talk about like what unconditional love is, but we never talk about what it's not, you know? And like, I think Margaret's right, like it is weaponized, and it is used against us to force us to do things that go against our safety, our security, our sense of peace, and we are kind of co-opted into this like be a servant, be servitude, be servile, because you know this is what you need to do as a good person, when really you need to be like creating boundaries, honoring yourself, respecting your boundaries, and like also like respecting the boundaries of other people, like fighting for other people, innocent people that are getting their boundaries trampled on every day, right?
Yeah, it's a complicated, like, it doesn't mean accepting abuse, it doesn't mean accepting harms to yourself or to others, and there, like as Damiana mentioned earlier, the accountability, it's like in beloved community, it's like you love them no matter what, and that means you care for them by holding them accountable so that they can be better persons. And I maintain the belief that no one has ever done this, like totally, and I think it's something to aspire to. So I want us to aspire to this and be compassionate towards ourselves when we fail. Because it's like, yeah, like I literally am asking all of you to unconditionally love. And that means everyone. And I think that that's impossible, but I want you to try. And that is what I try to do as well. So I don't think it's possible to fully do. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're like, I do it. And I'm like, okay, you're awesome. But yeah.
I think it boils down to a simple concept that is sticking out in my brain as a phrase: if you can't help them, at least don't hurt them. Getting back to like people who hurt me and processing the traumas and that. Going from you've really hurt me, I wish that you would get hit by a bus, to the next day you'd be saying, I wish you got hit by a bicycle. Until I get to the point where I wish you the best. It's definitely a progression, so I think we're all a work in progress, and we should all give ourselves some grace with that process. But yeah, if you can't hurt them, if you can't help them, don't harm them.
Yeah. If you can't help them, don't hurt them, and you can work on wanting them to hurt less than you did before. Yeah. I saw this plaque above someone's kitchen, and I saw from a distance, it said, I love you more today than I did yesterday. And I said, oh, that looks beautiful. Can I go take a picture of it? And they said, yeah. I went up and took a picture of it, but when I got up close, and it said, what did it say? Yesterday, you really pissed me off. And so I thought it was funny. And I bring it up here because I think it's okay to have whatever emotions you have. Like, I can be pissed off at someone and still want them to get their needs met. And I think one of the ways to show love for someone is to, if they're abusive, is to remove them from power. Because I do think when you abuse other people, that it hurts you inside. 100%. And there's some very abusive people in power right now. And I think it's our duty as people who might aspire to love them, or might even be able to love them, to remove them from power so that they stop abusing people.
It's an act of love to remove them from power.
It's an act of love to remove them from power. And it's not, it may be perceived as punishment, and in some cases it might even be, but I think it's something that we want to do to take care of them. Okay, and so I want to share that I have had a few different mentors in my life, and people that I've looked to for wisdom and learning and care. And Damiana is someone that I just find just one of the most wise people that I've met, that I turn to for so much advice and knowledge, and is part of the People's Plumbing team, is our researcher, is our main researcher for anti-authoritarian organizing, and is going to come and share a little bit about gift economics and the history of gift economics.
Hello. The idea that I am somehow your mentor is insane. Okay. But yeah, so we're going to talk about gift economics, both like some of the peculiarities of it and also like the history of it. I am open to like people asking questions and stuff like that, but I do a semi-traditional style of this, so just interject if you have thoughts. So gift economics isn't bartering. It's not, I have 5 mangoes and I want a pineapple, so you have to have a pineapple so that we can switch. Which I think you saw from the actual gift exchange that we did. It doesn't necessarily mean no money. Sometimes these systems work within each other, even throughout history. And then also, it doesn't mean that things are free. In the sense of, it often, gift economics is often practiced between communities, and communities have mechanisms in order to I owe you, but owe doesn't mean like in this moment, there's not always like this ledger kind of situation. We're just in community, and that means that we have these kind of systems that work that way. Gift economics means giving freely, being vulnerable about your wants and needs, and asking for things and not taking more than you need, which I think, especially in a capitalist system in which more is more, this is sometimes hard for us. Either a lot of people sometimes fully reject it and don't want to take anything from anyone and want to never ask anyone for anything, or have this like resource guarding way of going about things. If I can have more, I need to have more, whether that be money or food or any of those things. And gift economics asks us to untangle all of these feelings, both the vulnerability of needing and also the like want to hoard. And so most cultures around the world started as gift economics of some kind, especially between communities. And a lot of like friendship, I think, is gift economic, at least for me. I don't always ask like my friend to give me the exact exchange of the thing that we did together, right? And like, I always say like we have a lifetime of giving and taking from each other. It doesn't always have to feel like, sometimes I'm going to give you more advice or buy your coffee or whatever. And I believe over time our communities will make that work. But also in these communities over history, it's kind of worked like that. So over history, it's worked like that in the sense of these all also looked different. Gift economy looks different depending on what your community is set up like. In history, there has been some gift economies in which there's like a building in which everybody's extra grain and everybody's extra like blankets and stuff are all in one place where someone can freely go in there, take what they need, and leave. There have also been gift economies in which you do have to directly ask someone, hey, does anybody have these extra resources? Those are both gift economies, but gift economy can look different for your community, and making sure that you're doing what looks and feels right for your community is one of the like most creative things you can do. You can be like, I don't have to do this system that works exactly the same as every other community, that we get to do it for ourselves and what works for us. And I think that that's a wonderful like part of gift economy. So trade or exchange, which is like, I have 5 mangoes and I want a pineapple, did exist throughout history, of course, but it was often in situations in which you couldn't like trust reciprocity. Someone's coming from another continent, and they are going over an ocean and a mountain, and they're like, okay, I will need to know that we're gonna be able to exchange somewhat, quote unquote, equally. But that's different in day-to-day interactions, right? Like, I live down the street from Bogon, I see Cristobal several times a week. I don't need the guarantee of immediate gratification, immediate exchange to know that I trust them to be able to provide in that way. Some communities still use, lots of communities, I would even go so far to say, use gift economics in some way. Whether that's small or large, we're hoping to make it larger. And some have, although the more corrupted, they have been more safeguards. Oh, there might be more safeguards in place. So something, I don't know, has anybody heard of a time bank? Yes, okay. So time banks are like, you help someone for a certain amount of hours, and then you get a certain amount of hours. Just like basically, they have all their peculiarities as well. And that's a way of doing it. You actually, there's like a log of exactly how many hours. But I think what we're asking for is something a little more free. Something that you don't, it may take me 5 hours to do something, and it might take someone else 2 hours to do something. And just making sure that it feels and is, and everyone's getting their needs met is the important part. Yeah. Like I have been saying, gift economies are old. They've looked like many different things depending on the community. And now we're trying to raise gift economies in this thing we call capitalism. And so that's gonna look different than it had before. It's gonna feel different, like growing up, being socialized in a capitalist system. This is asking everyone to grow. This is asking all of us to think in a new way, or in a new scale. And that's gonna have some growth edges. And then to people's plumbing specifically, depending on our gift economy, some people do donate per hour that we help them. Some people give a flat base per month. Some people are not able to give when service is given, and that's okay. Everybody gets their needs met. You deserve to have working plumbing. You deserve to have a working toilet and a working shower. And we believe in our community to be able to make that work. And thus far, it has been pretty successful. I mean, when I tell people that this is how a whole company works, they're like, what do you mean? I think that's just a small example of how big this can be. And there's also zines on the tables if you want to know more. And if there are no zines on your table, can you guys raise your hands if you have zines, please? You can find someone with zines that goes more specifically into how this works for people's plumbing. If anybody has any questions, comments, things at this point, this would be a really good time to ask.
So, when you talk about taking this to scale,
yeah.
How do you define who your community is and who you're going to provide these gifts to?
Yeah, so I think that grows with us. I think that for People's Plumbing, right now we go about an hour and a half around the Cleveland area. Depends. But for now, to scale, the more you grow, the more you can grow, right? So the more people are able to be a part. What's the word I'm looking for? Your community is as big as you can make it. In the sense of the people who you are in regular, everyday relationship with is the easiest to start with. And then once that system feels sustainable, it is easier to grow a little bit outside of that. Maybe that becomes the friends of your friends, which I think has kind of started happening in our community. And then it starts becoming the people that they know. And then as these circles of people start being involved, you actually have more resources, you have more time, you have more people, you have more connections and skills to be able to share within these networks. And so it's kind of helped scale itself in that way. And also there's a lot of organizing and learning that gets done through every community because every community does look different. Does that answer your question? Just making sure.
It does. Are there so I would envision you all are providing this service of plumbing and, providing that to everyone. And are there other people in the community that are providing other things at this point? Is there another gift?
Yeah, so the question was, are there other things that other people are providing? So first I'll say we do plumbing, we also do electrical, and we do a little bit of HVAC, we're expanding in that area, we do other types of home repairs. And I know a guy, so there's the Fix It Clean,
Yeah.
which is like a clinic, and anyone can go and bring torn clothes. I've had a backpack repaired. I've seen them repair furniture and electronics, and you can bring it to them. I think it's called Fix It Clean, and you can bring stuff to them, and they don't ask for anything. There's a ton of mutual aid groups that I would say for the most part, I would call them gift economics. Food Not Bombs you might be familiar with. They just give freely and people just contribute their labor. People sometimes they put their own money into buying supplies to help feed people, and sometimes they get donations from stores. So I think there's a lot of different examples of gift economics around the world, and in Cleveland specifically.
What does it look like when you walk into some place who is called People's Plumbing? How do you explain to them that they're not just gonna get a typical invoice? What does that conversation look like?
When they're, so what does it look like when we walk into a place that we're gonna service?
Yeah.
Often, well, one of us will go and we may use the zine. And first we'll want to take a look at what the issue is. And then when we're going to start working on it, we'll ask if they've seen one of these. And if not, we'll want to give it to them and give them a chance to look it over while we're doing the work. And then after we've done the work, we have different ways of doing this, but I open it up. There's a section called What to Expect. And I will read all of the headlines with a person and go through each point and share a little bit of my own sort of like experience of those things and give people the opportunity to contribute. There are also, we did receive feedback that people were like, we don't know what to do. And people wanted to hear concrete numbers of what, and so we wrote some numbers and what those numbers mean financially for us. So like, there are amounts that people could contribute that would, if that's what everyone contributed, we wouldn't be able to pay our bills. And then there's amounts that would be more sustainable, and we talk about the different sustainable levels for ourselves and also different growth levels for us to help us grow. So, and you know, in 2 years, we've hired, how many people? There's Dale and Ren and Martin and Damiana.
Oh yeah, I do work there.
Yeah. And we have 2 functional vans that we've been able to purchase and equipment. So I think like people have contributed, and we've been able to help people who like have no capacity to contribute financially. And so for the most part, people are able to contribute financially, but sometimes people contribute less than the material price of like just the raw materials that we're contributing. Yeah.
So you mentioned that most people can pay at least one of these options. What do you?
Well, I mean, sometimes they can contribute like $10 or $20.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Because I was wondering, like, what is your audience? Like, who are the people that you're serving? Like, are they mostly well-off people, or are they? Is it kind of a range?
So in terms of what is the financial range of people that we serve, our goal is to try to serve everyone. And if we're not serving poor people, we're not really doing our mission. And if we're not serving wealthier people who contribute more, we're not financially sustainable. So we do want to serve both. I have spoken to people at times where they were like, oh, I wouldn't want to work freely for someone who's rich. I would want to only work freely for someone who's poor. And I was just like, I mean, that's cool if you can afford to do that. We can't afford to do that, so we want to serve everyone. I like not caring how much money someone has. It feels really good to not care and to be able to ignore that and just be like, I want to provide the best help that I can, and then, and that's all we want to do. And people have contributed enough that we don't have to care how much money they have, because we trust that those who can contribute more, and that's kind of what happens. And we are able to function and grow and do stuff. So I think it's, to be clear, you know, it started as an experiment, and it was like, there was like, oh, should we only do gift economics with homeowners? And should we charge businesses? And should we do this and that? I said, let's at least start with gift economics for everyone across the board. And honestly, you know, it was an experiment. I wasn't sure that it would work out, because businesses are in it to try to make money. But when we have on the small businesses, they do contribute. And so, yeah. These are mostly questions.
Do you, between like your split between, because I'm sure you do residential, what's your split between like residential and commercial?
It depends on if you include apartments as residential or not.
Okay. I guess I would
I'll
think.
say most of our work is apartments.
Okay.
They're commercial, because the commercial person is the one who pays the bills.
Okay, yeah, so commercial, and
You do a lot of work on like the entire like the infrastructure, or like individual like faucets, toilets, like, or like what's the split between that?
Oh.
Sorry.
I would say that it's much more like individual units.
Okay.
In the building, we've had a handful of jobs where it's like, let's replace every single toilet piece, like a specific piece in every single toilet in the building, but for the most part, it's a specific unit, it's like, the hot water isn't working, or a specific unit.
Right. All right. Cool.
so we do have a Q&A section after we have a couple more slides.
Oh, I thought this was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think these were relevant. We were just doing the gift economics section.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go to those. Next slide. So, cooperation culture. Now, we talked about earlier, we talked about separation and how humans in this society largely view ourselves as separate based on race, ethnicity, gender, class. We definitely see ourselves as totally separate from nature, and from other animals and plants and the world. Like, we just see ourselves as separate. And when we see ourselves as separate, we create domination. And the culture of domination is pervasive. It's in our economy, it's in our politics, and it's in everything. It's in our sports, it's in like all of these things. And I maintain that you can have competitive sports in a cooperative way, where you can like try your hardest to win and celebrate no matter who wins, instead of like being angry or sad when the other team wins. So I'm not saying we have to get rid of sports, but I am saying that our culture around sports is harmful, and it helps support our culture around economy. And our culture of economy is take as much as you can, give as little as you can. And our culture around politics is you have to defeat the other person, you have to defeat the other party, and you have to protect your people, which are very specifically not all people. Or even when often the rhetoric or language of all people, or in this country, all Americans, is used, it's almost never meant all Americans, because usually, even if they're including the two major political parties, they are leaving out poor people. And that's the thing that Republicans and Democrats do across the board, And I don't care if you're a Republican and you're poor, or you're Democrat and you're poor, or you're no party and you're poor. Those parties don't care about you. And I think that we need a political system that cares about everyone. And I think for me, specifically, in looking at gift economics, I think if you're not centering poor people when you talk about an economic system and reforms, then I think you're like not really doing it much. Like, I think a lot of work is focused on working class, a lot of work is focused on billionaires and people in between those, and a lot of times we leave out like kind of the poor, whether they're working or not. And I would say domination, the culture of domination, the economies of domination, and the politics of domination is the main problem in the world. And the domination starts with the separation, with the idea that we're not all in this together. So if we're not really buying into this idea, and it's a hard idea to buy into, like intellectually is one thing, but in our bodies, like I definitely am not always there. Like it is hard. So this is one of those things like unconditional love. I want you to aspire to this. I'm gonna ask you to try to dig into cooperation culture. And like, I don't do it. Like, I do my best, and I'm working on it, and I'm trying to be better. Yeah, I love to win sometimes too. Was already just talking about this. We need real systems of democracy. There are better systems out there that other communities, that other places are using, and we can learn about those systems. And we can try to figure out ways, like what is the best way to move from the system that we have right now to a better system. And I think this is a question that we need to work on as a society. First, to admit that our system does not really work for us, and then to look for a better system together, and then to work hard to transition out of this system into the next political system. Oh yeah, we wanted to talk about ways to get more involved. So, yeah, if you are interested in digging more into unconditional love, into generosity, into gift economics, there's mutual aid groups, like Food Not Moms, there's other groups, there's localized groups of like, for whistle brigades, people going around blowing whistles when they see bad things happening. There's different types of things that you can get involved in. And come and maybe talk to people in your own church, in your own community, and ask what people are already doing, and you can also reach out to us and ask for other opportunities to get involved. And now we're at the Q&A.
I kind of had a question going off of my previous question, but is there data that you guys keep or organize or have and monitor to evaluate like who you're serving and how many people you're helping?
I'll turn this question to Red.
Yes, I do. Especially for this year. Last year was a little less, but I keep track of every job that we go to, whether it's an individual or a property manager or a small business or whatever type, and like how many hours we worked and then how much the parts were and if they contributed or not, and I kind of tallied all that.
So yeah, in our year, in the 2024 year, we had a graph of like hours spent at a job and was it hourly rate or total contribution?
Hourly rate.
Hourly rate. So there's like lots of information about people swimming in the crowd. And I think that looking at that distribution was interesting and informative. And because this is simultaneously an ancient and very old way of doing things that never stopped. We are also fully entrenched in a capitalist system. And if we don't get money, then we could end up homeless, or we could end up, food insecure, or various other things. And so, so balancing the fact that we live in a capitalist system and trying to engage and be vulnerable and engage with transparency about what our needs are, and hoping that people will meet those needs, which they have so far.
Have you noticed, and if you have, how have you noticed capitalist relations perverting or distorting this model, the integrity of this model that you're trying to accomplish?
I'm not sure what you mean by your question. I'm going to try to interpret it, and you tell me if that's what you meant.
Okay.
So when starting it, before we started, there was a concern that maybe people would abuse it and say, we're going to accept your services, and even though we have millions of dollars, we're just not going to give you anything. Is that kind of what you meant?
I mean, I guess as well. Maybe I should try to rephrase. So like, your model, gift economics, is like a unique model in the sense that it has its own characteristics. Capitalism is an economic model that has its own characteristics. Those two things contradict. Like, what are the like characteristics of, or rather, when you smash those two things together, like what comes out? Is it like how does the gift economics model look after smashing those two things together, right? Because if you smash gift economics model together with like a different, form of economic relations, it might come out differently, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think does that make more sense?
Yeah, no, totally. So, and we try to talk about it in the zine. Let me see here.
Sorry, yeah.
One of the things we write is, the seventh point in here is, remember, we are trying to pay rent. As much as we appreciate paintings and vegan chocolate, they don't keep roofs over our heads. So I think it's like, if we were doing gift economics not inside of a capitalist system, we would still have needs that we would want to be transparent about, but they would be different. Like, the needs that we would have would be different needs. Like, I might more be like, I'd love a basket of fruit or whatever, but we are in this capitalist system, and so largely, and I think we also, at least I know for myself, like, it's not the easiest to provide me with things that I want to eat. I can be particular, and I do love those cookies, Valerie. They are amazing. And also the hummus was good. And so, so really in this society, in this capitalist society, like receiving cash is the main, or checks, Venmo, whatever, is the way that like, are the gifts that we're looking for the most, are the things that like help us survive, because of the world we live in.
So to follow up, you're saying, just to finish, you're saying that like you kind of have to suggest certain contributions because of the material needs that you have, and maybe under a different system you could maybe open those contributions up a little bit more, but because yeah.
Yeah. So
okay.
Well, so our 12th point in here is we're very happy with anywhere from $0 to $1 million. Like $0, we're very happy. $1 million, we're very happy. Anywhere in between. Now some have given 0, no one's given $1 million yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're holding out. And we have this point, consider these rates of sustainability and growth. And put this note in here. Note, the rates below are for transparency. They are not an expectation. We are truly happy to provide service regardless of your capacity to contribute financially. And then we list some rates. And they are for transparency. So we do expect for people to think about reciprocity and community. We explicitly expect that. And then for people, and then we offer these rates.
Sounds like you navigate the challenges very well.
We do our best.
Yeah.
So I have two questions about financing. One is the question that you thought Danny was asking, that he wasn't, that like, do people abuse the system? They just like, they've got the money, but they don't wanna pay, because, you know, they're capitalists. And then, have you applied for grant funding, or would that be counter to your philosophy?
Yeah, so the thing that I was saying before with the abusive things, I think that in a prior activist group that I worked with for years was abusive in a variety of ways. And one of those ways was financial towards myself. And they're a group that I was just like, yeah, I'm just not gonna work with that group anymore. And people would reach out and say, will you help us with this or that? And it would be something that would take me 2 minutes. I'd tell them no, or I think at the time I would say, I'll do it for $200 an hour, you know. And because I still thought the group was doing good things, but I recognized that they were also abusive. And so I didn't want to put myself in that situation really. And I'm still figuring out how to navigate that. And then you asked a second question.
About
Grants. We have not received any grants. We might have applied for one or two. I think we applied for one or two. We're not a nonprofit. We are an LLC. Often it comes up, oh, what about taxes? It's like, all the money that comes in, we count as income and report it to the IRS. So we are just like a regular company. It's as though we treat the money we receive as though we billed you. In fact, we retroactively add what you contributed to our participation form. So we call our invoices our participation form because we are asking you to participate in gift economics. And while gift economics is more accessible to poor people, it can be less accessible for people who don't have mental energy after a hard day of work to sit and think about how much they want to contribute.
As somebody who's trying to break into the trade unions right now, have you thought about, or do you, offer any type of like apprenticeship program where you take young people on who want to learn the trades and kind of grow them as professionals?
You don't need any experience to come and work here.
Cool.
So, yeah.
I learned everything I know about plumbing after I started working as plumbing.
That's cool. That's cool.
Just like,
I just have a quick question before I run out. What is that balance? You said that you're trying to balance, you know, paying your rents and all of the things that you guys need to be able to survive. Have you found what that is in terms of running a business based on gift economics?
When we started the company, we did a very unscientific thing of just kind of asking a bunch of people what they thought a living wage was, and we landed on $26 an hour in the Cleveland area, and we thought about it and we were like, well, we think we'll be able to pay ourselves $18 an hour, and so that's what our wage is. And so when people make a contribution, they may contribute $100 an hour or more, or much less, and what we pay ourselves is $18 an hour. And I guess I'll note that as someone who, definitely, I need to get my rent paid, and I need a little bit of food. I don't have a whole lot of other needs, and I also do receive some money from my parents. So I wanted to focus on the growth of the company and largely log the hours that I work to hopefully eventually get paid. But I put most of my salary back into the company to buy more tools and help us grow.
So in that, what kind of balance is there between the people that pay versus the people that don't pay? Like how many people in
Oh, I don't know at all. I try to not care about it, but other than like paying attention, so I was thinking we might want a metric of like how many either how many people we're helping or how many hours we're putting into
Yeah.
people who can't afford it, to make sure we're at least doing a certain amount of that. Do we know what that is?
If I had my computer, it might.
Yeah, you don't need it,
I
but
don't know
in
off the
general,
top
we
of
know.
my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in general, we are tracking that now at least, and because I do think it's important to look and know that we are helping people who otherwise can't afford much, and also like I want to help everyone. Yeah.
I just want to comment, I think I'm the only customer in the room, so I just wanted to say, you know, as a customer, we came by your information from my brother-in-law who has rental units, and I was trying to get a new water heater, and darn it, but I could not get a plumber to show up for under $5,000, and I was like, well, let's see if these people show up. So they show up, and but I felt like I had this homework assignment because I had to understand the concept in order to participate. So there is sort of this barrier to entry in a way, which I appreciate the effort that you put into the education process, which does add to your, you know, kind of burden of managing your business. For me, as the customer, on the customer inside, the tricky part was that I felt like I had to count your hours. And people were coming and going, and Ren makes a parts run, and somebody else is running something down the stairs, and I'm like, God, I don't know. I mean, so I was doing the best I could, but I just felt like I didn't know I had to be an accountant. I didn't know I had to keep personnel records. and so that was like, have you thought about just like including that? We spent 17.5 hours on your project. Now,
We usually do. I think you might have contributed. So sometimes we're very slow at getting those out.
Okay.
I think you contributed before we were able to. And literally, it sometimes does take us months. But
Okay.
before Ren started, it would sometimes just not happen at all.
Right.
And I used to in California. I was a licensed plumber in California. I had a company, and I would go out and help people and forget to bill them. And because I think one of my great strengths is also one of my great weaknesses, which is that I don't care about money. Like, I need money. I absolutely need it. And I don't like really care about it. And so it's hard to do things you don't care about. So it's like, you know, some people care about having a clean room or a clean kitchen or having their shoes organized or whatever, and so they can do those things. And if you don't care about it, for me at least, it's very hard to do things that I don't care about. Yeah. So.
We're very happy with the outcome, so.
Thank you. Yeah.
We just did our best guesstimate on the hours.
Yeah.
I just felt like I had to pay you guys, you know, minimum or something.
I have it somewhere.
Somewhere you wrote down the hours.
What hours people were
I know who to talk to next time.
Yeah, you gotta check in with Fred, really. Yeah. Cool.
What is your range of where you go, like how far south is?
I don't really like to talk about that.
Don't put that out there.
Like, it depends on the situation. We focus on the Cleveland community, you know, so Cleveland plus a little bit, you know, around Cleveland. Like, I've gone a bit farther than that, and the reason I don't like to talk about this, I don't want people from really far away being like, oh, okay, you'll come here then. But like, it's like we would, but we're not looking for that. I don't know. Yeah. So we've gone down to Akron a couple times, and it's better for us to stay closer. People have asked us to go to Columbus, and I was like, yeah, I don't think so. Like, that's too much. So I was like, it would have to be a really big job for it to be worth it to us, because it's like, I want to go down and stay the night and work on a couple of days of work. Yeah.
With the rising costs of just everything across the board, you know, inflation, and now fuel prices are going through the roof, do you factor that into any of your business models? And if so, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think this is one of the interesting things is, so being in worker co-ops and being political, in the past, the government and corporations have conspired to destroy political organizations and worker co-ops. And I actually think that gift economics is a huge protection, because one of the ways that they've destroyed businesses in the past is for a corporation to just sell things for less than what they cost to build them in order to drive a worker co-op out of business. So when there have been whether it's food co-ops or
I have a specific example.
please.
Walmart famously does it.
Yeah.
Walmart famously goes into a community that has mom and pop shops. That's how they became so prolific in the 80s and 90s. They sell everything for way cheaper than you can get it at any mom and pop shop for 2 to 3 years. That's all you need. Everybody else leaves the community, and then they raise their prices to way above what they need, and then you have no other choice. That's the biggest example.
Yeah. And Walmart's just doing that out of pure financial greed. There have been companies that have done it for political reasons as well. And so I think operating on a gift basis and having a community of support is a protection against this, because you're not saying literally, it's like some plumbing corporation would be like, they would have to pay you. Be like, I'll pay you if you let us come and fix your thing. And at that point, I'm kind of like, hey, you should let them pay you. And then if you want, you can still help me with my rent. It's because we are very happy to help you at your home for $0. It is a gift to you. It is a gift to the community. It's a gift for everyone. And I think that while operating in this way, I can understand would be very scary for a lot of people. I'm not saying that I think that analyzing, a variety of things, one of our goals is to mentor groups and individuals who want to start practicing this. So if you have a business and you'd like to transform into this type of model, or you want to start a new one, I do think that in many ways, it is a safer form of business than sort of more traditional capitalist models. So, because it provides inherent safety in people can't drive you out of business through pricing, and you're gonna, as long as you're very likely to, there's no absolutes, right? But you're very likely to generate community support and to say hey, we did this much work and I'm still struggling. And a lot of times people reach out when they need extra funds, even if they're not doing stuff in a general gift economics way. And people contribute, people do GoFundMes all the time. And I think that, there's a wide variety of ways to engage with this capitalist system and to start moving into a more gift-based system.
So I was gonna ask a question, and then I saw point number 13, and I thought it was answered, and then I thought of something that's kind of similar. Because I was just thinking about sliding scale systems. I'm a member of a yoga studio that has a sliding scale and limited membership. It's wonderful. I don't know, talk more about sliding scale and businesses. It's maybe not completely gift economics, but it's kind of halfway there.
Yeah, I think that it's like when we started People's Plumbing, the first goal, the first thing was seeing the need for plumbing in the community. People were not getting that need met, And we thought the best way to meet that need was through gift economics. But within a year, we transformed that into saying, okay, there's actually a bigger need for gift economics. And the way we're gonna meet the need for gift economics is by offering plumbing, electrical, and other home repairs. So it's physically it's the same thing. It looks like the same thing, but it's a different mindset. And sliding scale can be very helpful. And I've seen a lot of programs and organizations that have said, hey, like, if you can't afford this, let us know. We have so many scholarship spots. So, and I think they are thinking about those poor people that I'm like, you really need to think about people who just can't afford it. I've even gone to programs where, and I've facilitated programs where we offer money to people who are accepting the service. Because just because, you know, like sort of free doesn't mean you can afford it. Because you might have to take off of work. You might have to hire childcare. You might have a lot of expenses with going to participate in the community in certain ways. And so for me to get to your question finally of sliding scale says we are expecting something. And
Unless the bottom tier is 0.
Unless the bottom tier is 0, but I think even when the bottom tier is 0, I think there is still an expectation. Because you're saying this is the price. And I think what I would really love to see, and this is very, very hard work, we struggle so much to get our own finances up on our website, but I would love to see organizations be transparent, and people, individuals, transparent about their financial needs and their financial resources. And then people can make like a real decision about how much to contribute and in what way. Because when I go to someone, and if I go to 2 different tables and they're both like $0 to $20 for something, and one of them could be like a struggling single mother or single parent, and another could be like they're living a very comfortable life. They have their own house, they're kind of retired, and they're just doing this for fun. And I'm gonna approach those 2 experiences very differently. They may be offering very similar products, and they might have the same value to me, but I wanna contribute more to the person who's struggling more, because they have a greater need. And so really it's based on need, not based on other things. And this isn't, this is just groups in general. I think it is hard work. It is a lot of hard work to be transparent about your financial needs, but I do think the world would be a much better place if we could dig into the vulnerability. So there's the emotional vulnerability work, and then there's the bookkeeping work, which is also very hard to say, like, what is our financial situation, and what would help us meet our needs. And that's what I'd really like to see. And so, and if you did that with a sliding scale, I'd be like, okay, I feel like that's much more aligned with gift economics.
Yeah.
But if you're just kind of like, I have no idea if this is like your sole means of income, or if it's like, oh, I just kind of do this for fun, and this helps me buy a lunch at the cafe.
I think some people get a little overwhelmed at having a blank slate, and it helps to have some idea of what they could contribute, because they could go into analysis paralysis. What is the paradox of choice?
Yeah.
If you can choose however much you want, then you might stress out about it. Some people would, and they want just give me 3 numbers and I'll pick one.
Yeah.
That's me.
So another option is that I've seen groups do is you might have like, and we want to open on our website like a thermometer of like how much money you're bringing in, and you might have different goals, and you're like, at this, when we receive this much money, it means we're able to do this. When we receive this much money, it means we're able to do this, and so on and so forth. And so, like I've facilitated and co-facilitated workshops that were several months. And some people will contribute multiple times over that period, and some people will contribute once or 0 times. And you are transparent with the group about where you're at financially, and you give people and people keep contributing until you get to a point where people are like, yeah, that's like where it's at.
And one thing to mention too is, as someone who has received a participation form, it does very clearly lay out, like, this is how many hours were spent on your project, and if you were to contribute at this level, this is what that amount would be, and if you were to contribute at the medium level, this is what that would be, and if you were to contribute at the other level, this is what that would be. And it lays out, this level allows our organization to do X, Y, and Z, and it lays that all out for you really nicely because of exactly that analysis paralysis thing. So that is really helpful to make that decision more straightforward.
We did receive that critique, like, when we first started. Like, it was like, no, you need to give people numbers.
Especially if somebody could have contributed more, and then they're like, well, crap, I would have been given more.
Yeah. That's why I put that 0 to $1 million. Because I think that, and part of that $1 million came from, if we had profit, we would want to put 1/3 back into the company, 1/3 back into the community, and 1/3 split amongst all workers. And at that time, if we each received whatever the percentage of 1/3 of it was amongst the workers, we could have each bought a house. And I think it's no longer true, both because prices have gone up for housing and there's more workers. So maybe we should increase that number. And part of my thinking was just like, yeah, it'd be nice to have a house, and we don't need more than a house. Like, I don't understand needing more than that. I know that people feel they do, but I don't understand it. Like, I know that it's true for other people, but it doesn't make sense to me.
Just to your point about transparency and the kind of like thermometer thing, I appreciate that this church kind of did both of those things. And the thing that got my husband to agree to even visit here in the first place was that all of the bills and the expenses and even what the ministers are paid and everything was all available on the website.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And when we do our our pledge drive, we have like the thermometer thing and what our goals are and how close we're getting. Having that visual thing is really, it can be inspiring.
Yeah, we're still working on it. Maybe, I think we'll get it this year. Yeah, you're gonna help us with that.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're wrapping up. Is that? Yeah. Oh, it's 3 o'clock. 9 minutes to end, 20 minutes ago. Yeah. So thank you all very much. You're welcome to ask more questions later. There is plenty of these. You can take some extra to give out to people. There's also more up-to-date ones online. Online is always going to be more up-to-date. Like Damiana and Red are not in this one. The online one has them in it. So, yeah.
And everyone, you're welcome to take extra food, have some containers, and don't forget about the flowers.
And I will take this as an opportunity. One of the areas where I'm less generous and less sharing is when it comes to those cookies.
We'll get the recipe and you can have infinite for yourself.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.